Most companies end up spending anywhere between 2 to 3 months building their annual budgets. But do you know what actually happens during that time? Today, I'll break down the exact steps FP&A teams take to create an annual budget, and more importantly, how you can explain this confidently in your next FP&A interview. Interviewers love this question because this shows if you get the big picture or not. It's not just about the budget, it's about how to run the whole process, align teams, and make the numbers work. If you have been a part of a budgeting process before, that's good. You can connect your experience when you watch this video. However, if you've never been a part of budgeting, I will be giving you a step by step breakdown to nail this question confidently in your next interview. Now, this can be asked in the interview in different ways. I'll just give you some examples. Walk me through your annual budgeting process. How do you kick off the budgeting cycle in your organization? What are some tools or templates do you use to collect budget inputs? How do you ensure that all departments stay aligned to overall target? What's the FP&A team's role in consolidating and finalizing the budget? How do you handle inflated budgets or unrealistic requests from the teams? How do you review and validate budget inputs from different teams? How do you ensure accuracy and consistency in the budget assumptions? What are some of the challenges that you have faced during budgeting and how did you overcome them? How do you communicate budget expectations to the department heads? How do you deal with the last minute changes in the budgeting process? Next, let's talk about the three phases that form the backbone of any smooth budgeting process. First is the planning phase. Here we create budget calendars and set guidelines. Next comes the execution phase, which is collecting inputs, validating assumptions, and consolidating data. And finally, we have the review and the consolidation phase, where FP&A teams iterate with leadership, resolve gaps, and prepare the budget for approval. Next, let's break down each of these phases further. Okay, so step one is planning, and this is where a lot of FP&A teams either set themselves up for success or for a whole lot of chaos. This has two main parts. The first is the budget calendar or the timeline, and the second is the budget guidelines. First, let's talk about the budget calendar or the budget timelines. Think of budgeting like preparing for a big exam. You don't just start last minute. First, we set board review date. Usually, this is sometime in November or December, and then we work backwards to set key deadlines. For example, you think about for the board review to happen in December, when should the leadership reviews, which is the reviews with the CEO and CFO, should be scheduled? Then you work backwards, how much time will be required for FP&A for consolidation and reviews? Based on that, when should we put the due date for departmental submissions? And again, working backwards, when should we do the template distribution for collecting the inputs? So if you notice, even if the approval is in December, the budget process usually kicks 2 to 3 months earlier, sometimes as early in August or September, especially for bigger companies. Next, along with the calendar, FP&A teams also set clear guidelines to help keep everyone on the same page. Here are some examples of budget guidelines. Use official templates, no custom spreadsheets. Any big differences or increases from the previous year will need justification. No last minute changes without CFO sign off. Expenses must be faced realistically, not just flat 1 by 12 split unless it makes sense. These are just some examples of guidelines to keep the process smooth. In reality, these guidelines will be very tailored for your organizations and for different departments. Once the planning is done, we next move into the execution phase. This is where the real action starts. First, we start by designing the budget templates. But these aren't just blank Excel files. They are tailored for each department, pre-filled with historical data for easy reference and locked wherever needed to prevent accidental changes to formulas. Once we have set up these templates, we always test them, especially since they will be used by non-finance stakeholders. And our goal is to make them as simple, user friendly as possible so that they don't require anyone in the team to be an Excel expert. Once the templates are ready, FP&A teams hold a kickoff meeting where all the business units are present. After that, we send the budget templates along with the key assumptions like inflation, FX rates, and salary hikes with clear deadlines and example templates so that everyone knows what exactly is expected. Once the templates are sent out, we don't just sit back and wait for the final submissions. FP&A team runs weekly check-ins with each department. These sessions are super important to answer questions, tackle any roadblocks early, and make sure that everyone stays on track and we are not scrambling for inputs at the last minute. Finally, the departments submit their draft budgets with revenue numbers, expense estimates, and any major projects or hiring plans. But this is not just about the numbers. They also need to share their assumptions and justifications so that the FP&A teams understand the why behind the numbers and make sure that everything ties back to the strategy and it is not just a wish list. Once all the templates are in, FP&A gets to work consolidating and reviewing them, pulling together all the department budgets into one big company wide budget. This is the phase 3. Let's talk about the third phase, which is the review and iteration. Once all the numbers are in, FP&A doesn't just compile them. We go through multiple rounds of reviews. First, there is an internal FP&A check to catch any logic gaps, formula errors, or unrealistic assumptions. Then we have reviews with the business teams to align on operations. This is followed by the CFO review. And finally, there is a CEO review before it goes to the board for approval. Along the way, there is a lot of back and forth. Because FP&A's role is to spot gaps between departments' ask and leadership targets and explain why those gaps exist and help both the sides find a middle ground. Sometimes that means negotiating costs, adjusting targets, or running different scenarios to show the trade offs. Yes, FP&A teams also put together different scenarios: a base case scenario for what's expected, a best case scenario if things go better than planned, and a worst case scenario in case of a downturn. This helps the leadership to see risks, opportunities, and trade offs before finalizing the budget. Next, once the FP&A, CFO, and the CEO are aligned, the final budget is presented to the board of directors. The board usually doesn't make any change to the budget numbers, but they may ask questions about risk, assumptions, and how well the plans align with the strategy. Next, we will answer some of the common related FP&A interview questions on the budget process. What are the best practices in budgeting, or how can you improve the budgeting process? If you are asked how to improve the budgeting process, here are some best practices to mention in the interview. First, set clear timelines and ownership upfront. Second, align on common assumptions across the team. Third, use historical data and benchmarks to challenge inflated requests. Fourth, maintain version control with proper documentation. Fifth, always explain the why behind the numbers to get the buy in. Another interesting interview question: what is the FP&A role throughout the budgeting process? To answer this, you can say FP&A isn't just about collecting numbers, it is at the heart of the budgeting process. FP&A has different roles. They act as project managers to keep things on track. They act as analysts challenging assumptions. They act as advisors aligning plans with strategy, as negotiators bridging the gap between the teams and leadership, and as storytellers who turn numbers into clear and compelling stories. Next, how do you handle departments inflating their budgets? If a department is inflating its budget, I would challenge big increases by asking for detailed justification, reviewing assumptions, and benchmarking against the past data and industry standards. And that's how we will make sure that every dollar is tied to a real need. Next, what if the bottom up budget exceeds the top down targets? That's a common challenge. I would consolidate the numbers, highlight the gap with clear reasons, and present different scenarios to show the trade off. This will help the leadership prioritize and align the bottoms up needs with the top down targets. Another common question: what tools do you use for budgets? This depends on the company. Some companies use Excel for everything, others have budgeting softwares like Adaptive, Anaplan, or Workday. In some companies, it is a mix: Excel for collecting the inputs, but the data collected is then uploaded into a system for consolidation. I am curious, how does your company approach the budgeting process? Do you follow a structured calendar? Do you use Excel or a budgeting tool? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear how your FP&A teams handle it. If this breakdown was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, check the links in the description for more free books and interview prep resources. Also, do check out the detailed webinar on the budget cycle if you want to get deeper into this topic. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. At FP&A Professionals Institute, our mission is to help 1 million finance professionals master finance and FP&A skills. We offer comprehensive FP&A and finance learning programs for all levels. Visit our website www.fpnaprofessionals.com to learn more and kickstart your FP&A journey today.